We're live. Mark Minard, you're in the building, baby.
Let's
freaking go. Man, I'm so excited you're here. Congratulations on everything you've accomplished. I love all the books. I love all the gifts. I mean, you brought the whole chocolate factory over.
I just want you guys to give me some cigars, man.
Oh, they're already in a bag waiting for you. It's part of the take-home package.
Awesome.
Yeah. And do you smoke cigars?
It's occasionally, yeah. I love them. It's been a while since I've had one, actually.
Yeah, it's like a interesting vice, a cigar.
Yeah, it's nice though, like cigar with some coffee or something too.
Yeah, cigar
or
and
like
coffee.
A latte. Yeah, it's good.
Totally. I was just talking about to a friend that, you know, in life everyone has vices, and one of the most toxic vices is drinking. Right? You drink a lot, you're gonna have a lot of fun, right? But it's gonna impact your body tremendously.
Yeah.
Versus like low impact vices. So the idea is if you drink a lot of soda, it's going to be far less harmful than, let's say, drinking a ton of coffee, you know? So there's like different levels of vices. So I feel like as people, we need to just tune in our vices so that we can optimize our bodies, feel healthy, feel good, all of that.
Yeah. It's just too much of anything is bad. If you're able to like check yourself on what you're doing and it's not like actually affecting your life, I think that's really what it's all about. And everyone's different. Like I had that one friend in school that could smoke weed every day before tests. It got straight A's. And like I smoked, I did all that too. But for me, like, and that was back when they didn't have all the strands and you know what was what.
Yeah.
But to me, it would make me more like foggy and brain dead. Like I definitely couldn't do it like right before an exam. And for him, like he'd crank out like, he'd do it while he was studying. He would do it while he took it. It's like, it worked for him.
It's crazy. Like I know this engineer that was one of the most brightest humans I've ever met in my life. Like, unbelievably talented. And dude was high 24/7.
Yeah.
And it just dialed him in.
If it works, man, it works.
If it works, it works. And throughout your career, you've had an opportunity to learn a lot. And it seems like I get you as sort of the type that documents a lot. Do you tend to keep mental notes about certain things of your life, like throughout your existence?
Yeah. I mean, that's how I've written books. And I mean, I'm a crazy, weirdly wired entrepreneur. That's my brain's always going like 1,000,000 miles an hour. So I'll be on a jog, like typing stuff into Evernote, like something will pop in my head, or sometimes I'll do like audio clips, but I'm always like obsessively writing and documenting and saving stuff. Yeah.
And your entire career is truly amazing. I mean, you built a business that helps a lot of people, and you've built a business that supports and empowers an underserved market, where a lot of people look over it as maybe not the most exciting thing to jump into. You looked at it as something that has to get into. Can you tell us the story of how you built this?
Yeah, and it was like 2007 when I started, so right before like the financial collapse of '08. So that also was like right now where everyone's like interest rates are high. I mean, if you turn the news on, the whole world's ending every time. And that's why I remind people too, like when I went to start it in 2007, I think I was 26. I had just got married. We had 2 kids back to back. My wife was working the overnight shift for people with disabilities. And then I would like come home from starting the company. She'd be like, here's the kids. I'd be up all night with the kids. She'd come back. I go back on the grind, like just building it from the ground up. And
that must have been surreal because it's like your calendar's just bogged down. You're back to back to back.
It was just it was like, I didn't even think about it. I was just like, I'm going and I'm doing and I'm building something. And it was for people with developmental disabilities. And I wanted to open it up with like a successful business model because I knew if we were bankrupt, we couldn't help anyone too. So I saw a lot of like wishy-washy people get into the field that had a great heart, but you also have to care about the business part of it, or else if you don't have any money, like you can't pay your staff, you can't grow your company. So it's like balancing it all out. And even getting into it, like as I got into the field, they used to just have these horrible institutionalized settings that were really dark and depressing. And I wanted to create something, and I was always, it'd be like Disneyland, like a resort like setting, and just totally change the game for like healthcare and programs for people with disabilities.
So like the programs in general were just very
terrible,
just not a good energy.
And dude, not only were they not a good energy, they were all owned and ran by the state of Ohio. That's where I run it. And I mean, there's like close to $1 billion of funds that come in. So it's like they would get the funds, pay it to their own programs they own, which all sucked, and it would just recycle back. And so I had to spend like a year researching all the rules and laws to get certified while I was working full time. I had a mentor that had one other program on the other end of Ohio that was like a private one. And he's like, what you're going to do is amazing, but you're going to have to get ready to fight a battle, because I had to go up against them at every level.
You're like challenging the status quo.
It's exactly what he said. And he wasn't saying it to be like, you shouldn't do it. But it's like, that's what I always, when people are like, I'm an optimist, I'm a pessimist, I always consider myself a realist, because you can't be blind. Like, I looked at that still with like a positive point of view, like I'm going to overcome this. But you've got to be a realist to like gather the facts and know this is what I'm going to have to go through. So I spent a year, and like every new team member I bring in, even to this day, 17 years later, once they make it past their probationary period, I meet with them. I tell them the whole story of Dreamshine, and I pull that book out in my office in Ohio. It's like this big with every Medicaid, Medicare rule. I had them all highlighted. I had to become like a self-taught lawyer.
Yeah.
And I didn't love doing that, but I knew like the bigger purpose of why I was doing it. So that kept pushing me. And then when we went to open it, it was crazy. Like I did start getting threatening phone calls from like high up at the state telling me not to open Dreamshine. And I mean, dude, like my office was in a barn. I was just 26-year-old kid with like a flip phone. That was before iPhones. And I'm like, you couldn't even scan stuff back then. I was like printing brochures out from Kinko's, if they even still have that. I don't even know if they have that here in Florida. But a place where you had to like make brochures, print them out in bulk, like send them in the physical mail about this place called Dreamshine we were going to be opening up. And they just caught wind of that and were already calling me, telling me, I work high up next to the governor. I'm just telling you, we've seen these brochures going around. You shouldn't open up Dreamshine. We've been doing it this way for like 45 some odd years. And this
so like
is the way it's always been.
On the flyer, it almost outlined sort of how you were going to change it up.
Yeah, I was showing like pictures of what it was going to look like and all that stuff. And they were like, they called me to tell me not to open it. But literally like their job is they're supposed to be serving everyone. Because once you're equally certified, I learned that in the rule. Like, I don't want to overcomplicate. It's like if you have health insurance, you can choose to go to like any doctor on your network that's like covered.
Yeah, in network.
And a lot of our individuals are on Medicaid, Medicare with disabilities. So as long as you're certified, like we are as an agency, they can choose to go to any certified agency with like their insurance coverage. So we bill insurance kind of like a doctor's office.
So that first year was literally getting insured.
It was all getting all the certifications, but it was also battling. So the people high up at the state and everything, they didn't say they were lying. They say they accidentally misinformed them, but they would tell the individuals, because they'd have to go through them to come to our program. And they would say, oh, you can't go to that private one. You're only certified to come to our state-owned ones. And so they would lie. They literally were lying. So I would have to call like the head superintendent up, go and meet with them. And I'm just like in my shorts, t-shirt, again, 26 years old. I had the state law already highlighted. I'm like,
they're looking at you like,
who
the F is this kid think he is? Yeah.
And I like put it on his desk and I'm like, I'm sure you're familiar since you've been doing it for 40 years, but rule 5123, blah, blah, blah says like individuals have a right to go to any certified and licensed agency like we are. And if you don't allow them to, you're actually committing Medicaid and Medicare fraud. So at the next level, the whole state of Ohio would have to be investigated through the federal level, which I almost had that happen.
You said this to them?
I did. I absolutely did. At a time, I actually almost had the whole state on a freeze for Ohio. It went to such like 5 years later. That's another crazy story. But basically, like the next day, our first individual was enrolled after I met with him. And the mom called crying because she was so happy. She didn't think he was going to be able to get in. And now I know I sent you like some picture, a video, I think. But now, like 17 years later, we have 2.5 acres. We serve over 65 individuals. We have a waterfront lodge, a log home, and then we just finished our pirate ship building, which like overhangs the water. It actually is built like a pirate ship. And we do just, and actually we're still expanding across the street. And everyone like said that was going to be impossible. And a huge reason of like sharing that is not even about me, but it's not even the field you're in, just whatever you're listening and you're going after, like you're going to go against those Goliaths. And it just like literally shows one, if you're willing to put the work in, like one person can make a difference.
It's so fascinating with the existing government program situation, because there's just, I mean, think about how much money we spend on taxes every year, and think about all that sum of money goes into the government, right?
Right.
And I'm not a huge conspiracy theorist, but you know, where is that money being allocated? And I, you know, I've seen firsthand working in tech how quick big government is down to funnel millions of dollars into these like grants and programs that if you win, I mean, it can change your life. So it's interesting, like with your situation, because you have all these existing programs that are dedicated to help people with disabilities.
Right.
And you see this whole situation playing out, and these people have probably had a really cushy situation going, and they weren't changing it. And
it was horrible.
They looked at you as this guy that was essentially going to risk stopping it for everyone. It's kind of like when everyone's working this hard and that one person's working way faster, they're looking at him like, yo, stop working so fast, bro. Like,
well, yeah, no, you're right. And even beyond conspiracies, I've learned a lot of them are just really stupid and lazy, and bureaucracies are so not efficiently ran that most of the money was probably just getting wasted on stupidity. Some of the people behind the scenes may have been doing some interesting stuff. Who knows? But the bigger picture was the programs they had were horrible, and the individuals are being neglected. They'd be like going into these huge they need full assistance like toileting, eating, and you imagine that's your own kid that's an adult now, like after high school, and that's like the only place they can go. And I worked at some of them, and there'd be like 16 of them in a bathroom with just no one assisting them, feces all over. And it was horrible. And so like parents were having to like quit their jobs so they could stay home with their kids that are now adults to be able to take, it's with some of there's all different functioning levels, but with some it's like having a younger kid that needs full assistance your whole life. And they were exhausted. And it was like, that just fueled my why so much of like, no, like we're gonna make something better.
So you're able to figure out all the behind the scenes, the paperwork, if you would, to be able to lock in the funding. And when was like the first sort of breakthrough, the first like kind of like deep breath where you could finally like take a second to breathe because it was moving?
I mean, it's always a work in progress, but I would say maybe 4 years in to where we then had like our own spot and we were starting to grow.
That must be a great feeling.
And and then it's still like then the recession hit. So we're dealing with all that. Like I remember at one point using a credit card that had like a 20 with good credit, like a 20% interest rate on it to finish one of the basements in one of our buildings. And because that was all we had. And then we just got a letter in the mail. They're like, we're raising your interest rate to 35%. Like, never missed a payment. And it was like always just struggling through that. But that helped us grow. We pushed through it. We paid it off. I hate credit cards. I don't like to mess with that as much as you can. That would be a whole other episode on finances we could do.
Yeah.
But then we got invited. I think like when we kind of felt cool was like we had our compliance review with the state where they come in, they like audit everything. And we became one of the first programs like in history in the state to be in 100% compliance across the board. And they go through like everything with your team members, your staff, like every certification, every training, everything you have to have on the grounds. So I like got invited to go speak to that same like head county board that actually told me not to open. And the lady who was there, I still don't say her name, was at the event where I spoke at. And they like had us as like the honored guest for Dreamshine. And it just so I didn't even know, but her good friend's daughter was attending Dreamshine, the lady that told us not to open. So like after I spoke, she came up to me and she's like telling that lady that told me not to open. She's like, have you met Mark? He owns Dreamshine. Our daughter goes there. You love her. It's the best program ever. And I shook her hand. I'm like, I think we've talked on the phone before. And like, she knew that I knew. And that was like one of those, thank you God moments, coming around full circle.
Man, that's so cool. So, and then with it's in Ohio right now. Is this same situation happening all across the country?
Yes. I've had people ask us to open Dreamshines in at least like 38 other states. And we're working on expansion and even maybe one day a franchise. That's another level but that tests the leadership and the systems we put in place. But we're expanding across the street. So we're going to be able to like quadruple. We have like 20 team members right now too.
Yeah.
So learning tons on leadership, and we're a S corporation. So it's not a nonprofit. It's built like a business.
Yeah.
We have a nonprofit entity we're doing for like some of the candles and stuff like that for like our job program. But like I said before, like I knew if we didn't set it up like a legitimate business, I saw too many come and go, then we weren't going to last.
Right.
But you have to be in it for the right reason too.
Yeah, you needed to look at it from that capitalist standpoint to make sure that you can pay the bills. And
yeah,
it's only so far you can go with donations and paying people just to get by. It's figuring out something that is foundationally set up for success, where people are happy, they're paid well, they have the benefits they need.
Yeah.
And there's probably a lot of benefits to that versus going the nonprofit route.
Yeah. And I have a whole new CPA now that like does stuff at a whole other level with having other businesses and entities. And we're looking at a nonprofit for the future. We're trying to do a whole residential section that's going to be like smart homes, which no one's ever done in this industry. And that's where I am looking at like grants and stuff, where they do have like $9 million grants that we would actually use towards building those smart homes. Then another company like owns the real estate. But that's getting down the line. So there is times where it makes sense and you can have it and they like feed each other. And some of this stuff has gotten, we always just hear the worst stories of stuff, but I'm friends with a lot of like very successful, almost billionaires that are some of the most like giving people behind the scenes, and I'm sure you do too. Like there's a lot of great capitalists out there.
And I'm sure they see your business and they warms their heart and they want to help.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. They're always like really involved and we help each other, and yeah, it's cool.
That's something I love about just making the shift to being an entrepreneur, because a lot of the times it sucks. Most things about entrepreneurship kind of suck.
I'm so glad you said that,
because it's like
fake social media.
Every time something happens, in the back of your mind, you're thinking, okay, X can get this done, or, boom can get this done. And then you remember, no, it's only you who's going to get it done.
At the end of the day, it's on accountable for everything. Like, and then as you grow, like, and that's such a good thing with learning leadership. And I got to a point where I realized, like, whoa, I suck at leadership. I've got to learn a lot. It's a skill. That was like 12 years ago. And that became a game changer, because then you can have head leaders that can solve some of those bigger problems. But then the super big ones are going to get, and still at the end of the day, like, if something doesn't get done, like, payroll has to be met. It's on you.
Well, it's like a growing pressure every day. You know, it grows, but as long as you can achieve, it's amazing.
Absolutely.
But the bigger it grows, the bigger the pressure. The more people you can let down, the more impact it happens if you fail. You know,
that's what's the process and the levels of, like, I always say I'm like a 15-year overnight success, because, like, if you get it too quick, it's like you would crumble. And it's like each level you go through kind of prepares you for the next. So it's like you have 5 team members, 10, 20, 50, 100. And it's like you keep learning along the way to set up.
Just to even be able to fall asleep at night with the current levels of stress that you have, you know, it's each level.
I know we have to have like 250,000 every week just to meet payroll, every other week just to meet like payroll and health benefits now. And I remember at a time when we had to have like 4,000, and that was stressing me out.
Yeah.
But it's the same, it's just amplified. But like everything you go through, it like trains your mindset for that next level.
And what I love about it is the point I wanted to make with this is everything with entrepreneurship kind of sucks in that sense, right? It's 24/7, 7 days a week. You don't really have the holidays. You don't really think like that. Anything goes wrong, you're on call. You don't really have a nice 9 to 5 schedule where you know at 5:30 you're going to go to the gym and you're going to go a date night with your girl. It's just crazy because shit has to get done. And the hardest thing is no one's going to compliment you for it. No one's going to say, hey, great job, man. We appreciate you. So there's really little reward in that sense. So you have to just have a rock solid. But the thing that I love about it is the day you become an entrepreneur, the day you start sort of self-identifying, you start to be able to play in a new class of humans. And that's actually my favorite part about it. And I love that you mentioned, like, we both know successful people. Like, I love buildingcigars.com because it unlocks my ability to now talk to people that are CEOs of massive corporations. It allows me to talk to other entrepreneurs and have respect and skin in the game.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because in that respect and skin in the game comes from people that have also gone through that same pressure and feeling.
Absolutely.
And when you start playing ball, you realize everyone's down to help. Everyone's down.
And you realize too, like, everyone goes through the same. You feel like you're the only one, and I don't, like, a lot of it's mental. Like, we'll lay there at night and be like, how am I going to do this? Or still come in my head. 17 years I've been doing this. We have our monthly all team meetings. I go there, we meet with our whole team. And even still, I'll be like flying there and that thing will come in my head. Like, who are you to think you're good enough to go meet with your team? Who are you? It's like that crap still tries to come. You just don't allow it to stop you. And like everyone that I've known, whether it's been very successful professional athletes, I mean, some of them even like pre-show were like, dude, I'm so nervous. I had actors from like Breaking Bad and some other, I don't want to name them specifically, but like pre-show they were like, I'm feeling nervous. And I'm like, I just watched your show last week. Like, what? I'm like nervous to talk to you. But like, and I'm like, can we share that? Because that's like really comforting for people to know that just everyone goes through it.
Right.
But entrepreneurship and stuff we're very isolated and stuff. And it's the rewards are amazing and I'm not complaining. Like, I'm super grateful. But yeah, dude, like, you're not going to get, like, you give the praise out, you know, and you're not necessarily going to get all the pats on the backs, but you do through the results and also through, like, you know, times when clients reach out. And I'm sure like stuff like with this show, there's so much work that goes into a podcast. People have no idea.
Well, it's funny, you know how a lot of times people probably reach out to you and they almost just assume that you want them on your show.
Yes. Yeah.
You get those all the time. Oh, you have a podcast? Oh, great. I'll be on your podcast.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're thinking in your back of your mind, like, they have no idea the amount of work hours that goes into producing one episode.
For real.
So it becomes, once you get going, you start realizing, like, it really needs to be your decision to want to do it, because at the end of the day, it's not a handout thing. It's a production.
Yeah. And you'll get burnt out too.
Yeah, I mean, and it's also like an obsession, It's an obsession in the sense that it's so much work. I mean, like, the podcast is great because we have Sky and we've been able to do this and grow this together. I wouldn't be able to do it without Sky.
That's awesome.
I wouldn't be able to have this flow, this function, these camera systems. It's a team.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I wouldn't be able to have people that my editor team, my guy that helps with SEO for the website, and like the 4 or 5 other players that all work together for the podcast to make it so that I can do it while managing 3 or 4 other things at the same time.
And a company and everything else too. Yeah. That's what I explain too. Like, people will see my books or my speaking or the show, and I'm like, that's 10%. Like 80 or 90% is like also my company Dreamshine.
But it's also like, you look at Dave Portnoy with Barstool Sports, like 10 years he built Barstool Sports, and then like the 11th year it went viral.
Right. Well, that's my point. A 10, 15-year overnight success. It's literally like I don't know if you read like 3 Feet from Gold. It's actually a really good book, but it's like the example. I'm sure you've seen it with a miner with a pick, and like on the other end of the rock, they're like this close to hitting it, and it shows 2 of them, but they can't see how close they are, and it's like 3 feet on the other end of it. They're about to hit gold, and they've been doing it and doing it and doing it. And one is like finally like, I can't do it anymore, and leaves. And like 2 more hits and you're about to hit gold. But the thing is, like, you don't know if you're 2 hits away or 2 million away. And it's like, everyone I've ever met and known that's truly been successful, it takes time. It takes years. But you can do more than you think. It just takes usually longer than you think. And if you can get that in your head and like tap into your why, like, imagine if they would have given up like on that 10th year,
Yeah, and it's the journey, and that's the thing that's hard to remember.
I know.
It's hard to remember when you're not killing it, when you think about the journey, because everyone always says that they look back and the journey was actually the best part.
A lot of times the journey sucks.
But it just sucks. Yeah, it totally sucks. Yeah. But there's these moments. There's these moments of dopamine that are so exciting. Like, you get a big order, or you all of a sudden everything goes out the door for a minute. You just, like, your heart stops a second.
That's right. Because
it could be you. And being in the entrepreneur space, you start to meet so many other entrepreneurs. And one thing that I've always shared that I feel grateful for is, I never have any like jealousy that with people. I try not to have that, because it doesn't help anything. I'd rather root on my friends. Everyone win together. Everyone wins. But it also does friendly competitiveness get to you, because you're like, hey, if this person can do it, I know I can do it too. And that's what's great for the podcast. Like, I love the podcast because it forces me to network with high-powered individuals and entrepreneurs that become some of my best friends.
That's right.
But it also reminds you, like, shit, I can do this too. Sky can do this too. Mark can do this too.
Yeah.
These guys just took action instead of just thinking for 3 months straight. They just took action. And one of them led down a road that led to more action. And holy shit, And
you start to absorb it like a sponge. Like, and I always say respect the levels, like what you just said too, because, and I'm the same. Rather than getting envious or jealous, I get inspired, and I'm like, man, if they did that, that means I can do that one day. And I don't have to kill myself if I don't have 15 yachts right now or something, but it's awesome to see that can be done.
Yeah.
And I've say this a lot, but like, I've never, ever met a hater that was doing better than me. Like, I've never met a hater that was at a way higher level than me. It's always someone that's like down here, like picking and hating. Like, hate never comes from above.
And I think that's also the reason why it's easier as you get older to be an entrepreneur. Though it's harder because you have less time in a sense, but it's easier because you have less fucks. When you're younger, you're just so infatuated with what people think of you, and your follower count and what Jenny from high school is thinking about the video you just posted.
Social media is a whole other game. Yeah.
But as you get older, you get more like IDGAF. You get more, I'm in my zone. I'm in my lane. This is who I am.
Yeah.
I know I'm never even going to see those people that are in the back of my mind probably ever again.
Right.
and what's stopping me, you know?
Yeah, but it's I mean, we all have those thoughts and stuff. And I continue to remind myself, if what I feel like I'm doing is genuine and pure and helping people, then like, fuck it. Because I'm a Christian, I believe in God. Like, someone could write right now and be like, how dare you just say fuck it and believe in God and stuff. And I'm like, you don't know, like, my relationship between God is between God and myself. Like, someone could never say a swear word in their life and be out like murdering babies or something and act like they're perfect.
Well, it also makes you relatable.
Yeah, I don't overly cut, but that's my choice. I don't care if people cuss. I continually try to be like as authentic as I can.
Yeah.
And it takes, like, we all go through that. We'll do stuff and be like, man, what was that I said? What should I put that out there? And then I just like have to think, if I did this with the right purpose to try to help people.
Well, it's interesting because, you know, I'm a podcaster, but I think behind the scenes, I think Sky can agree, you know, we're kind of comedians, you know, like there's a funny aspect of life. There's a lot of shit that gets said that would never, I've become way better at saying what I want to say on the podcast.
That's cool.
But, you know, comedy is one of my favorite things ever, is laughing at the diabolicalness of what's going on in the world, you know, which is why
I would
Joe
love
Rogan
to start a comedy show one day, actually.
You know, it's why Joe Rogan's so successful, because he can go from talking about what's happening in Israel to laughing about, you know, processed milk or something, or just making a crazy joke. It's most people are actually like kind of diabolical. Not diabolical, that's a bad word. Most people are very sick in a fun way. They're sick people. They laugh, they joke around, they want to see funny shit. That's why Trump crushed it, because he freaking entertained those people.
Like, you know? A character. Yeah. I mean, dude, Trump. You have to have a sense of humor, and you're right. Like, when something, that's what I look at with guests. Like, some of them are like, here's my 10 questions you can ask me, and don't ask anything off that. And I'm like, no thanks. Like, that's just, I love you, but that's not a good fit. That go beyond like the news or radio, or it's just, but I feel like you have to kind of have that in your personality to be able to just talk and have conversations and joke and calm down. And like Donald Trump, I remember it was Dave Chappelle. It was so funny. It was when coronavirus came out, and Dave Chappelle's like, man, I don't like Donald Trump that much, but I got to admit it. I was watching him speak one day, and he was talking about coronavirus, and he came out and called it the Kung Flu. And he's like, man, he's like, I almost fell out of my chair. He's like, that's supposed to be my job. He's like, how's he doing that? Like, I'm the one supposed to be making jokes. And he was, oh man.
It's great. You know, people resonate with realness, and and that's also why a lot of in social media world, if you can get someone on social media who can be edgy, it makes people almost pull them to their brand sometimes. Like, you see the Slim Jim guy, Sky, you know who I'm talking about, the Slim Jim?
It's like the OG Slim Jim guy?
Yeah, like someone owns the Slim Jim account.
I'm thinking of like when it was like the
like
when was it used it like snap into a Slim Jim? I remember that.
No, there's like a guy who runs the Slim Jim account, and the Slim Jim account's always commenting like ridiculous shit on everything as it relates to like a big hard piece of meat. And people love it.
That's awesome.
People eat it up. It's on Instagram more so than, but yeah, Slim Jim. And every one of their posts, they have a 69 in the comments, in the not in the comments, in the photo somewhere hidden.
That's genius. Look, we're literally talking about it, right? We're advertising for them right now. Like, that's a perfect example. I guarantee you some people are like, you can't do that. They're going to, but now we're talking about it on your show, advertising them, because like what they're doing is working.
Yeah, and it's interesting. You have to sign in order to see it. But if you clicked one of those photos, there's always like a hidden 69. But it's like people always want to be. That's the thing that I'm always trying to tap into is it's just like, you know, for me, a lot of it's been health. So I'm really fired up on becoming, like, I'm going to be launching a course in about 5 months. It's a full detox program, because health and wellness is like everything in this world. You know, I've never been like a personal trainer. I've always been fit, but I've always struggled with gut issues, and I just hate how many times I've had to say no to things because like I just was too sick to do it.
Really?
Because of cravings, like eating croissants, like simply eating a croissant, like can F up my whole day, you know?
Really?
Like, simple things like that. So I'm excited and passionate about that. But someone could say, well, hey, Ian, there's 8 million detox courses out there. Why would yours be successful? And I think it's interesting because everyone has a unique voice.
Yeah.
And my unique voice will bring comedy and fun to this annoying process of changing your entire life, which is tough. You know
I like
what I mean?
that.
And that's what I love what you did with your book, 16 Reasons Why Your Business Sucks.
Yeah.
Because you took your own experiences,
Yeah.
you boiled them down to bite-sized chunks, 3 or 4 pages per chunk, talking about where you effed up and how you learned.
Yeah. I was just like, here's where I sucked. Here's how I learned to get better at it. Here's a real life example. And here's how to do it. Like, given an example and the how. And it's like, all right, next section. Without breaking it down and like all these equations and stuff that's just not even necessary or relatable.
And it's important to talk about where you sucked. You know what I mean? Because that's what makes it relatable.
Yeah. No, you're
know?
right. Well, it goes the same with your courses too. I was just thinking you bring the comedy into it, but also you've been through it. So you're not preaching like from someone that is just saying this. You're like, and it makes you relatable, and you can like emphasize with the people that are going through it. And you could go from the comedy to being like really real. Like I remember, I'm sure you went through depression at times where you're like, how am I going to go on a date if this is going to happen? I'm not going to get sick.
I'm like dropping atomic bombs. I can't.
Yeah. Like it's funny, but like in the moment, I'm sure it was like, so you could relate to people that are probably like almost in isolation and stuff because of that too.
Totally. Yeah. And it's interesting because anytime you ever change careers or try something new, you're going to look like an idiot.
Right.
So
you have to go through terrible on the way to becoming great.
So the people that are going to be most happy, you know, you want to try kite surfing, you're going to look like a jabroni when you start. You know, and if you're like...
You watch Always Sunny in Philadelphia?
I do.
I love that show. Sorry, go ahead.
The Christmas special is one of my favorite things ever.
Oh, my God.
We watch it every year, me and my dad and my brother.
That's fantastic. That's the first time I've heard someone else besides me or like my tight circle say jabroni. I love it.
100%.
I didn't know you were into Always Sunny.
That's like, dude, that's like one of my, I could do
you know
a
the
whole
Christmas
thing on
special where Danny DeVito comes out of the couch and sweating his balls off?
Yeah.
That's one of the most iconic scenes.
He's like hiding in the he's like, and he's naked.
And they're just stealing presents from other people. I mean, it's such a good Christmas energy.
Oh man, that show is fantastic.
I love creating traditions, you know?
Yeah.
Because I feel that if you can
Is someone going to jump out of this couch?
You have it set up.
If you can find excitement in creating your own traditions, I feel that you get to create a really cool life. Because it's like a lot of people want to go home to their families because of like the apple pie or certain things that remind them. But that all started with one person creating the tradition.
That's true.
So it's kind of fun to think about creating a tradition. Like we created a tradition here called Recovery Sundays, where, you know, me and a couple of my health-minded friends, Dr. Mike Parzak, chiropractor, we're going to get Mr. EEG on, Toby Passman coming soon. And we all do like sauna, ice bath, breath work, you know, like, and then everyone gets super stoned. And it's just like this really fun experience.
That's cool though.
Like dialing in your body, getting really like, it's a cool bonding experience. I don't know where I was going with that, but.
No, it's great. Well, I actually cut you off before when you said jabroni, I got too excited, and you were saying something when you said jabroni, you were making a point.
Well, when I think of the word jabroni, I always say every jabroni leads to a homie. Every dud leads to a stud. So you can't count anyone out, you know?
That's awesome.
You got to be down. It's like, I think about with people almost like a goldsmith with his little pan. And he throws a bunch of sand in there and a few pebbles come out. Like I think about that with people. You know, you can't judge people until you get to find out who they are, what they are, because you don't know someone's value. You don't know what they can offer you. So you always have to be a lifelong learner. And if you're
so true.
standoffish, if you're, you know, and everyone has an ego. So I can't say like, I don't have an ego. Everyone has an ego. But if you let the ego get the best of you and that's a big reason why, and I think Sky, we were talking about this, how certain, I don't know, let's just call it like Greenwich, Connecticut, like one of like the richest places in the US. Like sometimes when you get super, super wealthy people together, the parties actually suck so much more than when you get like just normal people around. They're
like
boring.
The generational wealthy people that not like the self-made that, because it's when you like came from like and built it the ground up, like those parties could be fun if you've like made it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I could see that the generational where it's all like
you get unplugged.
Everyone's wearing the same thing, and it's like you have to have the 13 forks and all that crap. And
the 13 forks.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's also interesting because it's you just don't want to become one of those people that so only stays in one lane 24/7. Like I love my friends are the type of people who can hang with the richest of the rich, can go on the yacht, handle themselves, can go to the upscale party,
right,
you know, present themselves, but also can go to like a poor place in the Dominican Republic and just vibe out on the beach with locals. Like those are my favorite type of people.
That's the way. There's a poem I even end my book with. It's called "If" by Kipling, and it's like talks about that. And there's a saying. It's like if you can walk with kings, but also walk with like, I forget what he calls them, but like mere men.
Yeah.
He's like then you are a leader and stuff. And it's like being able to like not let something get to your head. Man, it's so good on like failing and succeeding, but that's what I always continually strive to be. Like where we are now, like you'll see when you're on our show, like the neighbor, like we started with nothing, but I mean now like you have to go through security to get to our neighborhood. There's like NBA players that live in our neighborhood, and it's people could come and see us now and think like, oh, it must be like the younger me would have thought that. But like the UPS man will come and deliver, and like I'll just start talking to him, and then he'll be like, how did you get to live here? And I'll be like, dude, I was in jail at age 17. And like sometimes I can relate to people like that. People that are real, I can always relate to. But yeah, it's important that you're able to not like, you can go and hang with people and be the person that's successful and has the yacht. And also like my wife's from Sierra Leone, West Africa, and we go there and we hang out, we help people. And you're also able to like, just be relatable at every level. You know, you don't have to be Miami's cool, but like, I think on the phone we were talking about, there's like, you know, some douchebags too. Totally. That when people just try, I think like when people try way too hard, it's like most people I know that really have money. Sorry. That's
no worries at all.
Thought I had that off. If you really have it, you don't have to like try to flaunt it like that, you know, but there's nothing wrong with having like a nice car and all that. Like tons of people in my neighborhood do. And if that's what you love, that's cool. But you don't have to like always put this front on where
it's
you're like
lonely,
too good to talk. Or
it's a lonely
so
front.
Lonely.
It's a lonely and a fake front, because if you're flexing that all the time, you're going to attract fakeness.
Yeah.
You know, and some people say, you know, Miami's a place that can swallow you up and like wipe you out. But the truth is that if you're comfortable in your own skin, it's not going to mess with you. And
you'll meet. So when we moved to Boca Raton, which is like a super nice area,
amazing.
It has, it's
boat
beautiful.
Life there is sweet.
It's really cool. Yeah. But there is a lot of like stuck up idiots, but when my wife and I moved there, we were in Ohio, and I'm like, okay, yeah, but there's going to be idiots, and we're at a whole other level. We're living where we have the private country club and all that, but we'll always find like-minded people wherever we go. There's going to be idiots. Even you could be like broke living somewhere. There'll be idiots, and there'll be relatable people. It's the same way too. Like you don't have to hang out with the douchebags.
Quick pivot, by the way. Talk to us about what landed you in jail.
Yeah, speaking of being authentic too, I mean, I talk about it in my first book, but from having my company Dreamshine, it wasn't until like 7 years in when this feeling came like it's time to share that story. And I remember thinking, well, what's everyone going to think about me? Because I had become like well known throughout meeting with like, you know, high end people and board meetings. And I was still always me, but I was thinking like, what are the parents going to think, the families? And it was the opposite. It was like, oh, you went through that? Like that, my son's going through this and all this stuff. But without making it a whole other show, basically, I graduated. I was in all types of nonsense in high school. I somehow managed to graduate early at age 17, like not with a good GPA at all, but somehow graduated early. I was living in a trailer with 2 other dudes, working at a Harley Davidson shop, doing every drug possible, selling them, blacking out, driving for years. I wouldn't even remember getting home. Like, I can't believe I didn't kill someone or myself, or all the time. And it finally took one night. We were somewhere like doing, I think, like speed, coke, and drinking and everything else. And it was like 2 PM. And they were like, dude, they took me home, like to our trailer. And like, we weren't the type, they're like, you've had too much, you need to go home. Like, we'd be laughing and like dumping more shots down. So if they took me home, that means like I was out of my mind. And all I remember is I woke up, it was night. And in Colorado, we had a place called Wiener Schnitzel. It's Wiener Dog, and it was open 24 hours. I got into my car. Somehow I drove, and my only memory is I'm in the drive-thru, and there was this giant, like, cowboy truck in front of me, and I just remember it was like fading in and out, and I passed out. The next thing I know, dude, I believe I was dead, because it was just blackness, and then it was also just like boom, and I'm just like whoosh, my eyes jolt open, and I'm like, okay, what's going on? Where am I? Why is the ground so cold? It was pavement under me, and I'm like, okay, I'm not in my room. I look up, dude, there's this guy laying in the cell with this giant beard, like this full-grown man. I'm still only a 17-year-old kid. And I start getting up, and then the police officer comes to the door. He's like, Mr. Minard, step outside. And I'm like, what? I go out. I was in the holding cell. He takes me to start doing my mug shot. I still don't have a clue what happened. My face pops up on the screen, and the whole left side was all smashed in and swollen. My jaw was broken. My eye socket was fractured. And I had found out from the police reports that, like, when I was driving behind that dude, basically I just passed out, and my car like rear-ended him and then pulled off. And the witness report from the workers there said he just opened my door, and I'm just laying there like that. And this was like a 36-year-old grown man with warrants for assault, like another state. And he just had a field day on my face, just pounded the living crap out of me.
You just beat the shit out of me.
Yeah. And I was dealing weed at that time. It wasn't legal. And I remember I had an ounce, and I had it broken up into like different bags, like 8s at the time. And that would have been a felony and proof that I was selling it. Somehow when he beat me down, that all fell out of my pocket. So I don't know, maybe he took it. Maybe I wasn't like asking the cops like, hey, where's my ounce of weed? So I didn't get charged with that. But I went through such a long process, and because my blood alcohol was so high, the cop was like, when I read the report, I thought, they said you're in the holding cell. I'm like, no, dude, this guy's either dead or in the hospital getting his stomach pumped. And they're like, no, he's in the cell. And like, they're like, I have not seen someone with a blood alcohol like content that high that was not.
Drugs can allow you to hit that higher level.
That, and I was the other, and I wasn't like, oh, that's because I did speed and coke. But dude, I had been just living like that for like years, and it took going through that whole process of court, getting charged the highest. I tried to have my whole little victim story to the judge. I brought my pictures of my face beat up. The judge just told me everything I needed to hear. Was like, "Are you done?" I'm like, "Yeah." And she was like, forget about your little face getting beaten in. Like, your blood alcohol was so high, like you could have wiped out a whole family in a minivan." And I had other stuff before that too, for like not I think
Like
a
little
DWAI and some little
so it was
things.
all adding up. So they needed to teach you a lesson.
Yeah, a true one that I needed, because my mindset was all backwards. I'm like, I used to think you're born successful. You're either smart or you're dumb.
You're
I
like
thought I was dumb.
trash or you're not. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like, that's for them, not me. And anyway, going through that whole process, being on probation, losing my license for 2 years, having to ride my bike, take breathalyzers, had to do like 282 hours of therapy. They gave me the maximum of everything, or else I was going to be like doing 12 months.
Well, that's gnarly because...
And then my face smashed into and my jaw like partially wired. So anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, your Kanye West moment.
Yeah.
Great song. That's crazy.
It is a great song.
Well, it's crazy because a lot of people have done drugs when they were younger or they experimented it. But some people have more addictive personalities. And then there's, childhood traumas from like your family being effed up and crazy things happening in your house and you don't know what to do, so you escape. I think one big thing is who you hang out with when you're younger. Like dude, the crew you hang out with, I
had good parents, and I preach this to my kid. I'm like, so, like look around your 5 friends and that's what you'll be like. That saying.
Yeah.
The 2 guys I lived with in the trailer, I hadn't talked to them for like years. When I wrote my book, I looked it up. They're both dead. One of them shot himself. I think he was like still doing coke all the time. The other one had 2 like little girls, man, and overdosed from a bunch of painkillers and whiskey, like in their late 20s.
Terrible.
So like 100% of the people I was with at that time are dead. Like that would have been me, like had that not happened. And I didn't immediately just like, I can go drink and stuff now, and I'm not like a full-blown alcoholic. I was just in that time just doing everything all the time and just being an idiot, and the people I was around and just getting more and more into all that. But like when I wanted to start to change, I remember them like calling me a sellout and being like, people like us don't, like, I was thinking of going to school.
Totally. And that's another reason why it's like, you got to get out of your hometown,
Yeah, man. That's another thing too.
You got to get out. I mean, whenever I go back even to my home, like I love Loudonville, New York. I love Albany. For the most part. I don't love it, but I like my childhood.
Memories and stuff. Yeah.
But I just immediately get lazier. I get less productive. I like go back to like being like a 13, 14-year-old mindset.
That's interesting. It's almost like it pulls you back. Like,
yeah, I'm not like, I want to go work and grind all day. Like, I'm not inspired. I'm not creative. I'm more haunted.
Man, like Jesus couldn't do miracles in his own hometown, which is always like interesting of a mindset thing to me too. He could do them everywhere, but not in his own hometown.
One thing I think that's interesting with the drugs is, I know a couple people here in Miami that are super successful, but they're like full cokeheads.
Yeah.
And it's like gross.
It'll catch up. It is. It's not like,
it's not cool.
And if they're doing it like all the time too, like that's their coffee and stuff. Like they show those Wall Street movies and they make it look cool and sexy, or like Scarface, but they never have like a happy ending.
Yeah.
You either end up dead or in jail.
I just think coke's overrated. I don't know.
It's coke
with the fentanyl deal too.
It's horrible.
I heard a crazy statistic. How many people die a year from fentanyl overdoses?
Oh, dude.
Is it like 100,000?
I'm glad that
I think it might be as
high
as that, or that just might be the stat that I just watched in a Netflix movie.
I heard that too. That's crazy.
The guy that played Captain America. Yeah, 76,000. In 2022, fentanyl was responsible for 200 deaths every day. Over 250,000 Americans have died from a fentanyl overdose since 2018. In 2022, 73,654 people died from a fentanyl overdose in the U.S. That's insane, because if you go on the news and you see like 3 people died in this crash, or this was a school, like a shooting, but you never see that number pop up.
No, they don't. I know it's weird. 50 people died from COVID, but they don't say like 73,000 die from fentanyl. Like, what even? I'm glad that wasn't around back in my day. I don't even know what it is.
I'm pretty sure it's a painkiller.
Maybe it was around.
Fentanyl's been around. They just used it more in the hospital setting. It's like a morphine.
Oh, okay.
They still administer it in hospitals.
Okay.
But I guess the issue
But
is
it's
that
become more and more.
Well, once it hits the streets, it's cheaper than heroin, so people do it. It's the same
Got
effect.
it. Okay.
yeah, it's a scary situation, because, you know, here you are, you're a young kid, you're just, all you know is your school. You don't even know like more outside of that. Your just brain hasn't been open to it. You have no idea. And you're trying to like get with a cute
Don't
girl
worry,
at school.
it's approved by the Food and Drug Administration.
And you're
Right.
trying to get with a cute girl at school, and next thing you know, she's doing drugs. Now you're doing drugs, and it
Yeah.
just so happened that the drug had fentanyl in it, and now you and the girl are dead.
So wow, that's insane. Oh, they like smoking it or something?
No,
Or
they
have it
like
ki-
snort it, like
Okay.
cocaine.
I
Like
think
it's
I've seen enough YouTube videos of these street stories. They inject it, snort it, smoke it. It's just like heroin. However they
That's
can get it in.
crazy.
which is a big reason why, if drugs were legalized, a lot of this would go down.
Probably.
Because if they were legalized, at least it would be safe, like the drugs that they were doing. Because people aren't trying to do fentanyl; they're trying to do cocaine, and it just happens to have it in them. That's like the big argument for legalizing drugs. Like in Amsterdam or other places where drugs are legalized, like drug use went down tremendously.
For like the whole yeah, there's like the main street there with a lot of Amsterdam. People don't realize is like it's really beautiful, like the way they have like the canals and stuff. Like
I haven't been. You've
the
been?
surrounding. Yeah, it's nice, but like there's this strip where they have like the drugs and all that, but it's not. Yeah, it's not the way you think. But yeah, like Coke. God, I don't even. Back in the day, never was like addicted or whatever. But I would do it with my dumb friends, and who knows what the hell they put in it half the time. It could have had like bleach mixed with it for all I would have known. I'm just lucky I'm still alive. But
Yeah, I mean, that's what's important, man. And your mindset is so cool. I remember when we first jumped on the phone, you know, we just instantly vibed, because the
Yeah.
reality is, you know, you're a good guy. You're solving a problem that helps people. And that off the bat gives you more inspiration. You know, I think a lot of times when people aren't motivated, because a lot of times you go to these seminars, like 3/4 of the people that go to a Tony Robbins event are never going to do shit after that event.
yeah,
It's just wordgasms, you know, just
Yeah.
getting them off. But I think the big thing is the reason why they're not doing it is that they're not inspired. Like, they're not solving a problem that's inspiring enough to make them get up. They're not. And like, here's a great example.
Yeah.
Like, as a guy,
they want it to be easier. They want to like constantly have that feeling of there's nothing wrong with like going to Tony Robbins for like a pick me up and using that as like a tool. But some people, they want to and I want to hear your story, but like they want to constantly have that feeling.
Yeah.
And that's what you and I were kind of talking about, but we didn't hit exactly. But like being an entrepreneur and building something, there's a lot of days you do not feel like doing it.
True.
And you're not like, yeah, like Tony Robb, fist bump, we're going to do a show. But it's like your bigger picture of why you're doing it
Totally.
is like, I need to do this, dude. I've had amazing guests and been so busy. I'm like, oh God, I have a show today. I'm not. But every time I'm done, I'm like, man, I'm so glad that we did that. It's with everything. But people sometimes falsely think, well, if I wake up, I'm not feeling the same way I felt at that Tony Robbins event, this must not be my purpose. And I'm like, no, it's the opposite. Really, when you go after it, you're going to go through like more levels of hell than you ever knew were imaginable, but you'll have that why that will push you through. But I think that's what you were saying is some people maybe don't have a why or something, or.
Well, I was thinking just like they're just not inspired enough. Like, as a guy, right? A lot of the times guys are not as clean as girls. I think guys get more clean as they get older and they mature.
We take longer to mature.
But
Yeah.
like, I don't know. Sometimes my house is an absolute shit show.
Right.
But if I know like a girl's coming over, bro, I mean, I clean this thing head to toe, up and down. Like, I crush it.
That's
'Cause
awesome.
I'm motivated because like I want to put a good show. Like, I want to make sure that someone sees me. Like when I do a podcast, I try to clean the house.
Yeah.
Because I
looks
want
nice,
first
by
impressions
the way.
are. I mean, I gotta do the floor, but first impressions are everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You don't want people coming here and like having trash and stuff all over.
So it's like your website. You want your website to look clean because
Yeah.
that's people's first impression. You know,
That's
you want it
true.
to be dialed.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
you know, you gotta have that urgency to want to
That
make sure your product
urgency.
looks good.
That's a good
Because
word.
what's gonna happen when all of your friends see it, and that's what they're gonna think about? Now you're gonna have to work backwards because they already saw the product. Now, yeah.
And like that sense of urgency is like the key, because people think that you always have it all together if you're an entrepreneur. And it's like, no, dude, there's so many times where I don't, everything's a mess. But when it comes to the wire and I have to have it done, I'll do whatever I have to do. I won't sleep. Like, I will get it done when it has to get done. Like, that sense of urgency hits, and it's like we don't stop. And I also feel like they've tried to make being an entrepreneur so sexy that they made it feel like everyone has to be an entrepreneur or else they're like a loser. And it's like, no, like there's a lot of people. I have some amazing people on my team that, like, my highest paid director started doing direct care, worked all the way up to the top, makes more with a high school degree than people with multiple MBAs. She's so happy leading herself, leading other people, like totally in her zone. I would never stop her from going after her dream if that was it.
Totally.
But like a lot of people, you don't, and I'm not saying not to if that's what's in your heart, but like, don't let someone tell you like, because I said this, you should do this, and you're not good if you're doing this.
Totally.
You know what I mean?
100%. I mean, it goes back to, here's the other thing. 9 out of 10 people that even try aren't even going to make it.
I know.
So I don't believe in the burn your bridge, burn the boats. We're going all in. I like having a plan B, a plan C, a plan D.
It's like a it's kind of, it's funny with sayings like that. Everything kind of like everything's true and everything also contradicts itself. Like, you could pull sound bites from my speaking events where one thing I said here, I meant it and it was true, and then an hour later I'm saying the total opposite and it's also true.
Yeah.
But it's like understanding like the yin and yang of it all, and how there are times when you have to kind of have that burn the ships mentality, but also if things change, like, okay, you've got to pivot and adjust and like re-strategize, and you're still going after that like North Star or that treasure. But it's like, well, we just got a bunch of new information. What we were doing here with these ships like literally isn't working. So we're not like giving up. We're changing and re-strategizing because we have better information on what we're going to do. And then also, yeah, like you said, there's times where you do a side hustle for a while. I know a lot of people that have done that, and then that started taking off while they were working till they got to a point where it's like, now I need to go all in because this is starting to make as much revenue as my job.
Right.
So, yeah, there's no one thing for everything.
And then there's also the American way of life, which is work, 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 hustle, hustle, hustle. And then there's the European way of life, or other cultures where it's not as hard on work, it's more family and living. And that's also a whole different level of existence that a lot of people don't know in America.
It is, and it's and there's great things there, and then it's like a balance. Because I've been to Paris a lot, like with my wife, with my family for speaking events, and I love it. And we spent a month there the summer before last. And I remember sometimes it'd be like a Wednesday night, and everyone eats super late there. And my wife and I were eating. It was like almost midnight, and everyone's just out there eating dinner. But it would be like these old couples in like their 70s, and I'm like, man, aren't they tired? Like, and they're just drinking and they're having fun. And I'm like, does anyone work? Like,
I felt like that in San Diego when we were living in San Diego.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh man.
I was like, does anyone
We
work,
almost
or does
moved
everyone
to
just
Del
surf
Mar.
and chill all day?
Yeah, that's a cool. I like San
Me
Diego.
too. I love San Diego. If there wasn't Miami, like a second place to live, it would be San Diego.
San Diego's awesome.
But I mean, I just don't like California vibes, generally speaking. But San Diego as a hub is sick.
It's like a little separate pocket that's still cool. It's not the same as like all the other areas that have got out of control.
You're visiting San Diego soon, right, Sky?
I pushed it back towards like snowboard season, so I can ride.
Like Coronado, and so I love San
all those
Diego.
Navy SEAls there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's cool too.
yeah. The water's one thing I don't like about that is how the water's pretty dirty.
And it gets colder too. Like the water here is always warm, like a pool. Like there, I lived in California. I was actually born there originally. There's certain times, like in the winter, we have to wear like a wetsuit and stuff to get in.
Yeah.
It'll get cold. San Diego stays pretty much the same, like year round though. The weather there is freaking amazing.
Well, it's so crazy what you've built, man. I mean, your lessons, the practicalityness, the ability to take what you've learned and the success of your show, man. You've had such unbelievable guests on your podcast. It's inspiring for me.
Oh, thank you.
You know, as I work out and continue to build the show, what has kept you going with that for so long?
It's a great question. 'Cause it's been like 8 years now. And again, like I have my full other business. So I never like needed to do, it was more of like, I wanted to give back, and the connections I've made, like there's times we make revenue from it. We've had sponsors, but it's still not been like, even when we made it in the top 100 in iTunes, which was awesome, but it still didn't make it to a level where it's like, oh, I'm making $1 million, $2 million a month from like YouTube revenue. Like it hasn't hit that level yet. Like I believe it will, but it's been continually doing it to connect with people and help people. And I look at it as like a way of like giving back. And the connections I make, like every time I want to stop, like, or someone will write in and be like, dude, that episode you just did, like I was going through a really dark time. And I'm like, man, I don't know if someone saw it. And like that like helped push me to like keep going. And it's that, it's like things like that where it's like, I don't get to give up. So, and there's times like we were talking on the phone where we'll do a show a week. I stayed on that. And then sometimes with what's going on with other things, I may be like, all right, we're going to do one a month for a while. And now we're pushing back to one a week, but I've never been able to totally stop. And it keeps building and growing and stuff, but it's a lot of work, but like what you guys have here is cool, and you meet amazing people, and some of those connections have done stuff between myself and business that have built up more and like made more than any ads or anything.
Totally. And that's the thing that people don't, that's the secret gift.
Yeah.
That's the gift right there, folks.
Yeah.
If you ever hear someone say, everyone has the podcast, it's not about that. It's about conversations.
Last? Yeah. And I've seen a lot of people have them for like a year or so and go. And some of them reach out and be like, dude, Mark, I respect you now more knowing, because people don't know how hard it is.
Totally.
But a lot of them have them, but to keep it going is a whole other thing.
Well, one thing we always ask every one of our guests, it's like a staple for the show. And I love the different responses. But if you could go back in time and talk to the 17-year-old you that was all fucked up on drugs, that was going through those times, you're in a different headspace, and the current you could have had a moment speaking with the younger you.
Yeah.
And you could have told them maybe 1, 2, or 3 things that could have saved you a ton of time, money, heartache, headache, lessons. What do you think you would have told them?
I get asked this a lot. So first is my stupid, like corny dad joke where I would say time travel exists, by the way, because I'm here from the future. God, it's so stupid. And then I just go back in my time machine and leave. No. To be honest, I would tell myself, and that's everything that I do with the books and all that, I'm thinking of my younger self and that person that, like, you're not stupid. You're not, just because you're different and you think different, and right now you think that that's a disadvantage, and you struggle with these things like anxiety and overthinking is actually one of the biggest blessings, and that's going to continue to separate you like from everyone else, and that's going to build you up to be so much more successful and being able to help people. And if you're willing to just like work hard and not give up, like you truly can do anything. And it's not about being born smart or the straight A student or any of that crap. Like all this stuff that you thought was your weaknesses are actually going to become your strengths. And also the one other main thing is confidence. You're not born with confidence, and it's a muscle, and you can build it with work, with practice. You can build it just like any other muscle, and you can become whatever you want.
I can't think of a better way to end the show with that, because that was fire, man. I love that.
Thank you.
That's special.
It's been an honor to be here.
I love how you said you're not stupid. Because think
Yeah.
of how many times we tell each other we're stupid when we're young. Like, oh, what an idiot.
I used to think I was, man, because I wasn't like the straight. I thought if you weren't the straight A student, I thought they just had it all.
Yeah.
That was their path. And like a lot of them work for me now. And I don't say that in some stupid bragging, but it's like everything we have in our heads, it can get so twisted of what reality is. And that was pulling me down into all the drugs and the stupidity. It was all a lie.
It's all a lie.
Yeah, you don't have to, like, anyone can do anything if they just believe in it and, like, really don't give up. And that's part of their purpose. So.
Well, man, I appreciate you so much for coming on the show. I appreciate you making the drive out here. This has been so much fun.
Yeah.
How can people follow you? How can people find all these beautiful books, get them in their hands?
I made it. So if you just go to like Mark Minard, MarkMinard, I think .net. I gave it the wrong one last time. I think it is. And then it's Mark Minard on all social media, Instagram, YouTube, the podcast, Elevating Beyond. Yeah, thank you for pulling it up. Is it markminard.site or .net? We have our Dreamshine one. I always screw it up.
markminard.net.
Thank you. And that has connections to all that social media, everything. And please reach out. I love to connect with anyone. You can find the books and everything there, the shows, but it's just an honor. And I hope this helps anyone. That's what I care about.
Appreciate you, man. Looking forward to a long time friendship, and it's a damn good day to have a damn good day.